So, the good people over at Dubreq have been nice enough to send me a Stylophone Gen X-1 to review. This product came out in 2017, I believe, and it's a sequel to the original Stylophone, which came out in the 1960s, which was very similar in appearance with the black, white and silver case. But the original Stylophone was just basically a little mini organ using a stylus, whereas this is like a little portable synthesizer. We've got a spec here on the front cover with a Stylus Keyboard, a sound strip, LFO, low pass filter. You've got sub options on the side, an envelope, delay, pulse width modulation via a switch on the side, mini jack in and out. In's going to be interesting because I want to see what I can do with that. Built-in speaker and battery operated. So let's have a look at the back. It's got another nice large picture of the device and a bit of text from Dubreq. It's quite a nice little box. So let's pop it open, see what it's got. I've been dying to get into this, I must be said. I left it all week just so I could do this. Oh, there we are. So it's actually a bit bigger than I was thinking it was going to be. I used to have one of the original Stylophones back in the day. This is considerably chunkier. Let's pop it out of its plastic. There we are. I'm assuming there's a manual in here. There we go. So we've got a quick start guide and user guide. Right. Okay. So here we've got volume on the side, power switch here, octave switches down this side, ins and outs on there, and some sort of calibration on the back. Tuning, I think, if that's like the original, because that's where the original tuning was. This is your batteries, and then right, envelope, pitch, delay. That's interesting. LFO with shapes, depth and rate, filter, and a full delay section around this is the touch strip, and then the stylus should just pop out. Okay, right, so I'm gonna stick some batteries in this and have a play around and come back to you with a review. So I've spent a couple of weeks now playing around with this, exploring all the Gen X-1's features. You get a fair bit of bang for your buck for the sort of £60 price tag that it's currently retailing for. I've also been really enjoying the overall tone of the Gen X-1. It's very reminiscent of 1960s sci-fi and horror sort of films once you start to incorporate more and more of the features, the delay and the filter and the LFO. They all have that sort of tone to them. I'm not quite sure why, but it's really evocative of that era. It's quite a dirty sort of sounding piece of equipment. It's very analog, it will drift, and so therefore it really does sound like an older piece of equipment, which is really useful just to have kicking around the studio. It does have a built-in speaker here, but for this review I'm going to be using the line out just to get a nice clean recording. So if we start off here, we've got the Stylus Keyboard, which is set out like a piano keyboard, and then we've got this touch strip here that gives you completely free pitch, which is quite good for effects. It takes quite a lot of pressure to trigger that, but it's okay once you get used to it. It's really useful once you add on delay, but we'll come to that later. So on the side here we've got some octave switches. These will add in a sub-octave below where we play. So we'll thicken the sound, and you can have them in different combinations. And this top one is what's called pulse width modulation in the manual, but it actually sounds a bit more like a chorus. And we can control the rate of that using the LFO knob here. So that's great for getting some movement in the sound. If we go to the filter, here we can adjust the cutoff. This will darken the sound depending on what position it's in. if we add in resonance, that it creates more of a sharper sort of tone as the cutoff moves through. Well, that's quite a lot. Let's dial that down. All the way up to really, really screaming. So then moving on to the envelope. The envelope is hardwired to the cutoff. So if we set it in a low position and then start adjusting these attack and decay settings, we can adjust how quickly this knob moves, controlled by these knobs. So attack will lengthen the amount of time it takes for this to kick in. And then decay will determine how long it takes to shut off again. Using these in combination, you can create all sorts of different tones. Just turn those off again. Additionally, you can also control pitch with the envelope, so the more we turn this up, the center knob, the more these two will affect the pitch of the Gen X-1. From short to... And then the more you turn it up, the more the pitch will be affected. So that's great for getting some effects going. Here the LFO is it's hardwired to both cutoff and the pitch of the Gen X-1. So depending on how far the depth knob's turned up, the more we can affect these. If I turn down the cutoff a little bit, you better hear that. So the depth affects the amount the LFO controls cutoff and pitch by whatever shape we've got. Here we've got a triangle selected, so the pitch will waver up and down depending on how much the depth's turned up. And at the speed the rate control is set at. And simultaneously it's also moving this cutoff. Now we really are into sci-fi territory. So if we switch to square, it's just going to jump up and down. So yeah, great fun. Now moving on to the delay. This is one of my favourite parts of the Gen X-1. Once we switch this on, it's going to create copies of the sound that it's producing. Depending on the delay time, that will determine how far the delays are apart from each other. The more we turn up the feedback, the longer those decays will take to disappear. And we can turn the level of the whole delay up, even to the point where it's louder than the actual incoming sound, which is actually quite useful. So if we add a little bit of... You can soon get some really big, swirling kind of sounds going. Then if we really turn up our feedback, we can get some really strange noises going. And we can soon get into really out of control territory. Now it's worth mentioning that the keyboard on this on the Gen X-1 is quite unusual for a synth in that you're not just giving the synth information as to which note to play. You're actually completing the circuit. So there are times in which you can affect that. So you can, if you do this, you can get some really weird stuff going on, which is really quite cool. I mean, there's nothing else in my studio that you can do that with. You can also, as you slide between notes, get some really weird, dirty G-tune stuff going by going between notes. Also, the tuning knob on the back will extend the range of this. If you want, you can shove it down an octave or up an octave. You can actually cover about 5 or 6 octaves range, so it can go really deep to really high. Being completely analog, it will drift a little bit and not always be perfectly in tune, but that's quite nice to have that option of something that's a bit weird and a bit wonky. So additionally on the side here we have an auxiliary input. If I stick it in one of these 3.5mm stereo cables, we can plug something else in. So I've got a pocket operator rhythm here with a drum pattern going on it. I press play on this. We can then affect it by the cutoff and delay that's in the Gen X-1. So that's great to add into a portable setup to give you a decent amount of processing, so you can filter and add delay to other instruments. You can also still play over the top of that whilst you're affecting external equipment, so that's really useful. So when tuning the Gen X-1, obviously you can use a commercial chromatic tuner or tune it to another instrument like a digital piano or another synthesizer. But one of the best methods I found was just to get a free app onto your phone, like this tuner here. So it just gives you instant feedback on whether you've got it in tune or not. You'll need to be holding the stylus against one of the notes on the front whilst turning the tuning knob on the back, which is a little bit fiddly and quite sensitive, but it's not too bad once you get used to it. So that about covers the basics of the Gen X-1. I've got a few more advanced tips and tricks that I'll share in a separate video, yeah, if you'd just like to leave a comment below, please share and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching.
Thank you.